Hi everyone. So today I'll be taking you through the basics of the structured query language, or in short, SQL. This is the interface that I use for writing queries if I want to practice on a personal level. It's called as the MySQL workbench, and it uses the MySQL query language. You also have other querying languages within SQL. So you have Oracle SQL, you have SQL Server, as well as Amazon Redshift. But this MySQL workbench is just the interface. MySQL is an open source language, so it's freely available. You can in fact download MySQL workbench from their website. And after you finish downloading it, you'll also find these two schemas. So you have this world schema, which will have three tables: city, country, as well as the country language, as well as the Sakila schema, which will also have a bunch of tables within it. So since this has, as you can see, many more tables rather than the world schema here, which just has like three tables. So we will be primarily using the Sakila schema or the database here to make or structure all our queries. So in this video, I'll be talking about the skeleton or the backbone of the querying language. We basically have 5 statements in any, or if you see anyone formulating a SQL query, they'll use it using these 5 basic statements. They are the select statement. You will have the from statement, sorry about that. You'll have the from statement, you will have the where clause, you will have the group by clause, and then finally the order by clause, or you can say statement. You can call it what you want. But these 5 statements formulate or comprise your SQL query. So now let me take you through what these individual statements or clauses do. So first, the select clause will help you select the columns that you want from the particular table or a group of tables that you're using. So for example, if you're choosing the actor table over here, you'll have 4 columns within actor. So you'll have actor ID, the first name, the last update. It's 4 columns within the actor table. So I'm just going to hide that for now. Similarly, for the address table, you'll have a bunch of columns. For category, for the city tables, you'll have different number of columns. The select statement will help you identify which columns you require from any of these combination of tables, or even the single table that you choose. From statement here actually helps you select the table, or choose the table or group of tables that you want. So if you want to pull data from actor or city or country, you can use or enter that information within the from statement. The where statement here serves as the filtering mechanism. So if you want to filter out any information from either your from or your basically from your from statement. So because from helps you select the table that you want, so where will just help you filter out the rows that you want to pull, or the information that you want to pull from that particular table or a group of tables. The group by statement here will help you group your data by a particular column. And order by finally helps you to order it again by a particular attribute or by a particular column that you would want. In this case, I'm using attribute and column interchangeably. They are the same thing. Group by would be grouping it by a particular column, and order by would be ordering it. You can either order it by the same column, or you can order it by another column. So let me help you understand this better through an example. So say I want to select some information from the city table. So let's start off with the from statement. Now, before I start off, always remember the order of execution of your SQL statements. So it always starts from, so for example, when you write all these statements in your SQL query, it will always start from the from statement here. So I'm just putting a comment here represented by a double hyphen, a comment 1. This just says that the from statement is the first statement that will be executed in this query. Next will be the where statement. So again, I'm separating it using a double hyphen. 2 would mean it's executed second order. Group by would be the next one. It's the third in order. Then next, it won't go to the order by, but it'll jump to the select statement over here. It's a bit weird, but that's how it is. So after the group by, it'll then go to the select statement, and finally, after all of this table, all of the data has been pulled, it'll then do a order by. So this is the order of SQL, of any SQL query execution, whether you're using MySQL, SQL Server, Oracle, or any other language, SQL querying language. So let's start off with the from statement here, because it's the first one that is executed. So the from statement here, let's start off by choosing, say, the city table. We want to extract information from the city table. So let's see what information is contained within city. So if I go to the drop down of city and choose columns, you'll see the city ID, city, country ID, and last update. So let's just quickly check the contents of this table. So we'll do a sakila.city here. So Sakila here is the name of the schema again. That's the database which contains all these tables. And city is the name of the table that we want to pull data from. So the from statement has that. And let's do a star here. So what a star means is we want to select all the data within this particular table called as city. I'll end this with a semicolon because that's typically what you would use in any Oracle or any interface that uses the Oracle language, whether it's Oracle SQL or MySQL. It uses a semicolon towards the end. This is basically used if you want to separate out multiple SQL queries. So if I put my cursor just before that semicolon and press Control Enter, it will basically run this these top two lines here because I have ended the SQL query over here by using a semicolon. It's like an ending symbol that you would use. It would not execute these three statements. So if you look at the output now, you'll have the city ID, the city, the country ID, and the last update as the columns that are stated over here. Now, next what we want to do is we want to filter out certain information. So now, say we don't want countries which have a country ID which is greater than 50. So we only want countries with country ID less than equal to 50. So what this will do is it'll filter out or eliminate all the countries which have country ID greater than 50. So if we run this statement now, you'll see the country ID will not be less than 50, or rather will not be greater than 50 anywhere. We'll only have it at a maximum of 50. So you see maximum of 50 for a city called as Fukuyama. You'll have a bunch of other 50s depending on how many countries have that particular city. So you see city here, you see this country ID repeating here for these bunch of these cities in Japan. Most probably this Hiroshima is in Japan, so it's Hino, Higano, Shika. Sorry about that. The city name here is also in this particular country, which is Japan, because we know Hiroshima is in Japan. So now we have country ID less than equal to 50, filtering out all the states that are greater than 50 and only keeping the states which have country ID less than 50. So now let's try to include the group by statement here. Now in the group by statement, we are trying to group this particular table by a particular attribute or a particular column. So say we want to find the number of cities in a particular country. So what we'll do here is we'll group by the country ID. And now we want to output all the cities, or we want to output the count of the cities that are in countries with specific country IDs. So we use the select statement here. We'll select the same country that we want, or the country ID that we have down there. So we'll select our country ID, and now we want to count the number of cities which are present in each country. So we will use a count aggregate function. Now there are different aggregate functions that are present. So we have the count function, we can use the sum function, we have the average functions. So whenever you're using any kind of a group by statement, and then you have any column within the group by, you have to make sure that your select statement has an aggregate function to back that group by, to back that group by basically. So you need to have an aggregate function over here. You can of course choose to have country ID because that's what you're choosing to group by here. But then next, what you need to have is you need to have an aggregate function. So count would be an aggregate function that you can use. So let's count the number of cities, because that's what our problem initially was defined to be as. So we are counting the number of cities in this particular country, and let's end this by a semicolon. Remember, you can also choose to do this. If you don't want to show the country, we can choose to ignore this country ID for now, but we want to have this country ID. So let's see how many cities do we have by country ID. So we choose Control Enter here, and you can see, you'll see the count of the cities by country ID. Remember, we cannot have, we cannot choose to have, other columns here. So we cannot have, say, the city column here, because this will not make sense. We are grouping by a country ID, and then we are choosing to display the name of the city. This will just not make sense. So make sure whenever you have a group by function here, there is an aggregate function to back that up. And if you're using any kind of non-aggregate function, it has to be the same as whatever you're grouping by. So for example, if you had a city ID here, make sure that there is, or rather, if you have a city ID over here in the select statement, make sure to have a city ID in the group by as well, because you cannot have a city ID in here without grouping it by city ID, because that would just not make sense. So finally, we have the order by statement over here. So first, just let me remove these things that we don't want here. So in the order by statement, we basically are ordering our columns by whichever column that we want. So here, for example, we are outputting the country ID as well as the count of the number of cities within each country. And if we just execute this statement over here, we found that it orders it in ascending order of country ID by default. I don't know why it's having it by ascending order of country ID, but it may or may not have. So if we want to have this in our control, for example, so say we want to show this result over here by the descending order of country ID. So say we want to show it by country ID 50, followed by 49, 48, and so on. So what we'll do is we'll order it by, once again, country ID, and then use something called as DESC, which is descending. So descending would mean it would order this country ID and then place all the rows in the descending order. So we end this by a semicolon and then use Control Enter. So now, as you can see, it's starting off at 50 because we'd filtered in the where clause all the country IDs which were less than equal to 50. So it'll start off at a maximum of 50 and then go down to country ID of 1. If we use the keyword ascending over here, which is denoted by ASC, it will also order country IDs, but now it will be by ascending order. So we execute this and we see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, which was by default. Without even using the order by statement, it was by default ascending, but we want to have this under control, so we use the order by statement. So with that, I hope you have now understood the basics of the SQL querying language, and with that I would end this video. Thanks a lot for watching.